everybody. Hi, so great to see you.
Hello.
Welcome to summertime down here in New Zealand. We're a bit warm. We've got the fan on, so hopefully you won't be too disturbing for you noise-wise. First of all, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. I'm Becky.
And I'm Vanessa.
And we're from Remarkable Minds. So Remarkable Minds is our business that we've been running for quite a few years now, helping neurodiverse people. But beyond running a business together, we've actually been friends for 20 years. More than 20 years.
Yeah. Gosh, that makes us sound quite old.
Yeah. Well, we actually met when we were living together in the middle. Not together. We were living in the Middle East, and we both happened to be there at the same time. And we met when our kids were small. And we're now both in New Zealand together. So we have a real deep understanding of each other. So Vanessa is neurodiverse. I'm sure she'll be talking about that a little bit.
I will.
And I am not neurodiverse. I am neurotypical. So we have a very unique perspective on how that interaction works. And I have seen in Vanessa massive changes from when I first knew her to how we are now. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And we've called this talk Resilient Minds today because out of our experience, our life experience, our lived experience, but also our professional experience. So I'm a neurodiversity specialist. I'm a licensed ADHD, autism and dyslexia coach. And Becky is a life coach.
I'm a life coach with a specialism in neurodiverse adults. We focus more on adults than children.
So we've created a course called Resilient Mind. So today is a conversation, and we've got a couple of points to talk about, but then we will just tell you a little bit about our Resilient Minds course later on. But Becky and I do have a very different view of neurodiversity, and I think so often neurodiversity is about education or learning or operating in work. And, we really come at it from that whole person emotional view, because the thing is, being neurodiverse actually affects all areas of your life and your emotions and your relationships and how you operate at work, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so much talk now about neurodiversity out there in the world. People are definitely becoming more aware of it.
Yeah.
But the focus is often very much more on productivity and time management and organization and focus and all of those sort of really practical things, which are awesome and really are important. But actually, we really need to look at the emotional toll that being neurodiverse takes on people. Being neurodiverse is complicated. It's complex, and it has a lot of emotional consequence that I think, as in the roles, in the jobs that we do, in the roles that we play in people's lives, we see the consequence of that a lot. We talk to a lot of neurodiverse people day in and day out, and we really see the toll that it takes on them, the having to mask, the having to hide. And I guess we really wanted to come on and, excuse me, that's a very loud truck going past.
Very loud truck.
We just wanted to come on now at the beginning of the new year, because we're really very aware that the new year is a real double-edged sword time, and I know this is something that we've talked about a few times, and how it's different for me than it is for you, and what that sort of beginning of the year means for you.
And I think the overarching sense for me for much of my life has been complete overwhelm. By the time I get to the end of the year, I'm in complete overwhelm, and especially at Christmas time, there's so much organizing, isn't there? And regardless if you have a family, if you don't have a family, there's just a lot of organizing to do. And there's this hard deadline. And so down here in the Southern Hemisphere, Christmas is our big break. Like the schools finish in December and everybody's like on holiday. So often in my ADHD mind, I'm constantly negotiating deadlines and time, right? And Christmas is this real hard deadline. It's like, oh my God, I actually have to get things done by a certain time. And that causes a great amount of stress for me. So I'm already quite overwhelmed coming into Christmas. And then, we've called this about being overwhelmed in the new year, because for me, the new year is like, okay, so this year it's going to be different. This year, I'm going to get organized. This year, I'm going to be that person who doesn't forget, school concerts, or I'm going to be that person who isn't rushing to do work at the last minute, or I'm just going to be this person that's suddenly calmer and more organized. There's this big kind of like, it's going to be different this year.
Absolutely. And there's all that sort of new year, new you nonsense that's out there, isn't there? It's like you can recreate yourself on a day. It's like, okay, the clock ticks over to 1 minute past midnight, and suddenly you're a completely different person. I mean, it's just.
But I used to really believe that.
I know you did. It's like, that's it. Ping! I'm a different person now.
In my ADHD mind, I'm like, poof, right, that's it.
Now I'm organized.
If any of you are old enough to remember I Dream of Jeannie, it's like, whoop, here I am.
Absolutely. And I remember you talking as well about always buying a new planner, a new journal, and new notebooks. Like that was going to solve the problem. It's like, if I've got a new lovely planner, suddenly I'm going to be able to be really organized. But the reality is, isn't it, that it doesn't really work like that. That you can't suddenly decide to be organized. And actually, it's almost dangerous to do that, I think, because you put yourself under that pressure of, right, this is it, enough of being the way I've been last year. This year, I'm going to be a completely different person, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other. And then within a couple of weeks, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Within a month, you've completely stopped doing it. And then it's another reason to beat up on yourself.
Yeah.
And to tell yourself you're a failure because I couldn't even do that. Is that right? Would you say that's how you felt?
Absolutely. And I think it's that, before I really understood the impact of being neurodiverse, and so I'm ADHD and dyslexic, before I really understood the impact of that, there was always this sense of failure. There was always this underlying sense of, I'm not doing enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I'm just not good enough at being a mum or, an employee or whatever it was. There was always a friend. There was always this underlying sense of, I just was never enough. I was never good enough. I never did enough. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is that I didn't realize what was behind my struggles. And, that's what we're really about. We're really about uncovering the hidden side of being neurodiverse and what it actually means. Because, we see a lot, people are getting a lot of diagnosis now. There's a lot of information out there, and it's great. I think it's great that the awareness is happening. And I speak to a lot of people who are like, oh, I've been diagnosed. And then what, and I think diagnosis is great if that's what you need. But a diagnosis isn't going to actually change how you feel about yourself. No. And that's what we are really passionate about,
and
isn't
actually,
it?
we find as well, don't we, that, sometimes even when people do get a diagnosis, it then comes with a degree of grief, especially when you're later in life. We're finding that more and more people are coming to diagnosis now through their children. There's a lot more awareness around neurodiversity in kids now. And so a lot more diagnosis is happening there, which means that a lot of adults, because we know that it's hereditary, a lot of adults are realizing that they're neurodiverse through that as well. And that can mean that you've lived a life up to this point a certain way, believing and having those core self-beliefs that you're not good enough, or you're not worthy enough, or you're not capable. Exactly. And so when you find out that you do have neurodiversity, whether it's a realization through yourself or whether it is a diagnosis, it can be like, oh, what if I'd known earlier? What if I had known this when I was 14? How would my life have been different? And a lot of people find that really difficult to manage. It can be really, really hard to deal with that that grief that comes along with those realizations. And as Vanessa said, you get the diagnosis, or you come to realize that you're neurodiverse, and then what comes next? There isn't, especially for adults, there isn't really a lot of support available.
No.
You get a piece of paper that says, yes, you have I don't know, dyslexia or ADHD or whatever. And then where do you go with that? How do you then understand what that means for you? And that's what we're about.
Yeah. And I think it is quite specialized. Like I'd been to see some counselors and stuff before I realized my neurodiversity, to try and help with the overwhelm that I felt and just the chaos of my mind, really. And, there is a place for that. Absolutely. But I think understanding my neurodiversity was the missing piece for me, really, because it really made me see what was causing it and why why I couldn't just, I don't know, do the practices that I was supposed to do and then things would change. And we talked a little bit about this on our earlier chat, was imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is so rampant in the neurodiverse community. And, and what I would say is everybody has not everybody. A lot of people can experience imposter syndrome. It's not something that you have to be neurodiverse to experience. But I think the difference is if you're neurotypical, you have that belief that you can learn something or you can develop yourself, or with experience, you will make a mistake, you'll learn from it and you'll move on. So, and that's a real difference between the two, isn't it?
I would say that's absolutely true. Yeah, we've talked about that before, where, like me as a neurotypical person, I come to any situation with the expectation that I can do it, that I can learn it.
That just blows my mind. Even now, I'm like,
anything, even Google Ads, but let's face it, are like a nightmare. But I would assume that given time and given the right YouTube videos or whatever, I would be able to do whatever I wanted to do in Google Ads. And I think that's the difference for you, isn't it? Is that, for neurodiverse people, often with the historical experience that you've had at school or in life of getting things wrong, making mistakes, being told you're not good enough, that all layers inside of you, and you start to believe that you're not good enough, you're not capable, you are not able to learn new things. And that's just not the case. It's just not true at all. You're amazing at learning things.
Well, I'm amazing at learning new things now because I know about my ADHD and dyslexia, And I think it's really interesting, like, as Becky has said, we've been friends for a long time. And I would say Becky knew me at my worst, at my neurodiverse worst almost, and the chaos and the stress. And, I, until recently, used to believe that it was always my fault or I'd made a mistake. So, we've talked about this previously, but, that was my automatic belief. If something went wrong, or there was, I missed something, or I just always assumed it was my fault. And we've just realised there's a couple of comments.
Sorry.
Hello, everybody. We'll read your comments now. But it's just that underlying belief that it must be me. And it's only when you actually start to do this work that I actually started uncovering. I was like, oh my God, so Becky doesn't think that? I was like, really? Oh, wow, And now I don't have that automatic assumption, you know, and I think, understanding what's going on, that's what makes life easier, because at the end of the day, the world is set up for neurotypical success.
It so is.
Education, work, life. It is
everything, form filling, all of those, making appointments. Even we went to an appointment at a really big organization not that long ago, and we had to sign in on an iPad to get into the door, because no one has receptionists anymore, do they? You had to sign, and the questions they were asking, we were like, for Vanessa to understand those questions, there were so many double negatives and complicated sentences in there. Just like, do I press yes or no? It was just a real moment of, oh my goodness, this is so much harder for Vanessa than it is for me.
It's so true, isn't it?
Yeah. So Alistair said that I don't believe it when others say I have a talent, and that is such a neurodiverse trait. Such a neurodiverse trait. Unless something is hard, it's not valid. That is the belief of a lot of neurodiverse people. It's like, if I haven't had to work really, really hard at it, then it's not valuable. And that is not the case at all. There is so much natural talent that comes along with being neurodiverse. Now, we don't look at it as a superpower. We're not into that, hey, it's a superpower thing. But it does have amazing talents that come along with it.
And I think, Alistair, you've really hit on something there, because we undermine ourselves so often and you really don't believe you have a talent, and it's all very well for someone else to say it. And I can't tell you the number of times people used to say to me, oh, you've done that really well, or oh, that's amazing, but inside but it's really not, it's just a fluke. That's what I used to think. You're just
saying that,
I just used to think, yeah, but you don't really know that I've faked it, or that
and that's back to that imposter syndrome, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Back to that not really believing in yourself, and that is the consequence of years of not getting, making mistakes, or not believing in yourself, or being told that you're wrong when you were younger, and you layer that on internally, and then that is the consequence. You don't believe in yourself. And then what do you end up saying all the time? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I
used to say I'm sorry all the time. I mean, there were some days when I was at my dyslexic and ADHD worst, I'd walk into a room and I'd literally go, sorry. It's like you just start saying sorry, because it becomes such an automatic response. And I think that's the thing that people don't always see with being neurodiverse, is we develop these coping strategies. You can call it what you like, masking, coping strategies, whatever. We develop these behaviors, but people don't see how exhausting those behaviors are, and we're really aware that, if you're in New Zealand, you might have had a break, and maybe you're, back at work, or thinking about going back to work, or if you're in, other parts of the world, the UK, America, Canada, wherever else, you might already be back at work. And I know for me, it always used to be like, I've just got to get through to the end of the year. I've just got to get through to the end of the year. And then I'd have to start gearing myself up for going back to work, or, taking the kids back to school. And, you just don't have that solid foundation within yourself. I think that's what people who don't have any experience with neurodiversity really don't understand, is it's that really solid sense of self and being able to trust yourself. Absolutely. You just don't have it.
No. And we see that a lot with the people that we work with, is that I wouldn't want to call it insecurity, but it's just that, they honestly don't believe that they have anything to offer. And, it doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't have to be like that.
No.
There's so much that neurodiverse people have to offer. It's just a case of really understanding yourself, and because we're not taught, are we, at school?
No.
Nobody is taught in school how to be an amazingly functional and well-performing neurodiverse person. You're just not. You're taught, in one way, which is a neurotypical way, how to excel and what's required of you. So it's like, we always talk about like having a Ferrari and not being taught how to drive it, because it's a very different experience driving a Ferrari to driving a
Toyota Yaris,
whatever,
or a
Ford Focus, I was thinking, but whatever. But there isn't the awareness out there, and there isn't the education available for neurodiverse people to help them understand what's really going on. And the neurodiverse brain is different.
Yeah.
It's a cognitive difference. It's not a choice. It's not a different way of thinking. It just is a cognitive difference, a different way of processing the world around you.
Yeah.
And once you understand what that means, what that looks like, and how that's been affecting you in your life. And what we're really interested in is the emotional side of being neurodiverse, and what that really means for you, and how things have happened for you in the past that now affect you where you are, and how you can sort of reconcile some of that to make things different for you in the future going forward. So that's what we're really interested in.
And it's the emotional and mental well-being, because I think, from the outside, people would have thought I was very confident.
Absolutely.
I appeared very confident. I was very good at putting on a show. But that took a lot of energy and effort. And in one way, it was even more stressful, because I was always waiting for that time where I was going to fall flat on my face, which I always did at some point. I just never quite knew when that was going to be.
But it's that fear of being found out as well, isn't it? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But that, you're working so hard to look confident, to appear like everything's okay. And then, it's that, when am I going to get found out?
Absolutely. And I think, Becky touched on it before. It's like we're not taught how to understand our mind. And the neurotypical way of processing information and showing up in the world is very different from how it is when you're neurodiverse. And, that's one of the things that we're really passionate about is giving you some tools that really work for the way that your brain works, because our brains do work differently. And, is my life plain sailing now? No, because that's not life. Things still happen, but I react to it differently. And I think that's what we're so passionate about, is it's an internal journey that you need to take first.
Absolutely.
And hey, I was sitting there scrolling on the holidays and I saw an advert for some app for ADHD, and it was like, oh, my life's so organized now and I just need this app. And even I was like, oh, maybe I should get that. And then I was like, but actually I know that's only one piece of the puzzle. It's actually the internal work that made the biggest difference. Because now if I make a mistake, or if something, my dyslexia comes out, or my neurodiversity or my ADHD, I'm actually like, there it is. I don't feel so bad about myself now. I don't have that really deep set self-belief that I'm flawed or I'm wrong or I'm not capable. And that's actually what really starts shifting, because not being at peace with yourself, that's actually one of the hardest things about being neurodiverse. And the only reason you're not at peace with yourself is because you've been trying to fit into a mold that just hasn't worked for you. And you don't understand that, do you?
No, absolutely. That is so true. And we always talk about, our 3 steps are awareness, acceptance, and action. So the first piece is always the awareness of what's really going on, of what how neurodiversity really affects you, what it really looks like, how your brain really works. And then once you sort of have that understanding that there's nothing wrong with you at all, it's just that the world isn't set up for you, and you can really understand how your brain really works, then you can start to have some acceptance and some peace. And I think that's the bit that you're talking about, is that finding that peace in the way that your brain works and not fighting yourself all of the time, because that is really, really tiring. That, having to put on the mask, having to pretend that you behave in a certain way. I get onto the last piece, actually, the action as well, in a minute. But I was getting distracted just thinking about that lovely young girl that we met who one of the things that we did in a corporate organization, who had said to me that if her colleagues encountered her outside of work, they wouldn't recognize her, that she was a completely different person outside of work than she was inside of work. And she was having to make some very serious adjustments to herself to be able to operate in this environment that actually was quite a friendly environment. It was quite an accepting environment. It's not like she was in a really hostile environment.
No.
But she was not in the place where she was able to talk about what was happening for her with the people that she was working with. And so she was working so hard to hide it, coming into work really early so that they had a hot desking environment so that she could find the right desk for her. And then once she found the desk, worrying about who was going to end up sitting next to her.
Yeah.
So that she, is she going to have someone sitting next to her who's going to make life very difficult for her in the work environment? Things like that. Really, really hard. So, once you've got that awareness and that acceptance of who you are, you can then start to talk a bit more about what's really going on for you, and you can create an environment that works better for you. But then you can start to take action. So that's the third part of the puzzle, isn't it? The action.
Yeah. And I was going to say something there. So my neurodiverse mind was like, oh, I could make that point. And now I've completely forgotten what it was. So I'm just going to be me. Yeah, right. I mean, that's what happens. But yeah, I think when you were saying about not knowing yourself, and I think that's it. It is really tiring. And I've remembered what I was going to say now. I think as well, the other thing is you learn to not communicate what's really happening for you. Yeah,
so true.
And and Becky can always tell when I start getting a bit stressed, because I can't talk about what I really want or what I really think or what I really feel.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of history there, because we learn to hide. We learn to hide what we think, because I've sat in meetings before thinking, well, surely the answer is obvious. Can everybody else not see this? But I don't say it because I wasn't able to articulate it well enough. And, this happened this morning. We were talking about something to do with work, and I couldn't get my words out properly. Now, because of the relationship we have, because of Becky's understanding about neurodiversity, and because I'm also able to say, you're just going to have to bear with me, I will get the picture eventually, I felt okay about that. But for a long time in work and in personal and friendships and life, I haven't been able to say that. So it's amazing the impact of that.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's part of the action that we give you, is actually helping you to understand how to communicate in a clearer way what's actually going on for you. Because we've had to hide all our lives in school and relationships and work. You don't learn
be
that,
yourself.
do you?
Absolutely.
No.
And if you can't be yourself and show up as yourself, it's very hard to even begin to identify those emotions. Coupled with that, how fast the neurodiverse brain operates. It operates at 6 times faster than a neurotypical brain, and there's a lot going on, isn't there? And so it can be really hard to pin down what you actually do feel and what you actually do want. And that's part of sort of the work that we do, is helping you to understand what's actually going on and how you can articulate it so that you can get get the results that you want. Alistair says he had a bad stomach when he was young. And I think that is common, that is because it is all part of that, the super fast brain, B, the sort of the stress around having to communicate. We talk as well, don't we, about being put on the spot and how hard that is for a neurodiverse person. If you're just, in an environment and someone suddenly asks you a question and you're like, and it's not that you don't know the answer, it's that your brain's working so fast that maybe you can't articulate the answer, or you just, you can't pull out that information in that moment. And for someone like me, it's not the end of the world, but for a neurodiverse person who's had years and years and years of feeling like they're not good enough and they're not, the same as everybody else, all of those little things have consequences.
Yeah, hugely. And I've seen that, like we said, Becky and I have been friends for years, and I remember Becky will be asked something and you'll quite often go, let me think about that. Whereas I'll go, blah, 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 and then I'll think, oh my God, stop talking, Vanessa, stop talking. Oh my God, that's not what I want to say. And I'll end up saying something opposite to actually what I want to say. And this is not being able to say no. Yeah, I can do that. Oh my God, I can't do it. What have I said that for? There's that part of it. And Alistair, I used to say rah, rah, rah all the time, because I could not get my thoughts out coherently. As Becky said, my neurodiverse brain is going 6 times faster than you're able to speak. So I just used to go, and rah, rah, rah. And then I think, oh my God, people are going to think I'm an idiot. All of that type of stuff. It was exhausting when I think back. God, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I think, we are just so passionate about helping you feel better about yourself, because yes, you can get an app. Yes, you can get a diary. Yes, you can find ways of organizing yourself or finding the right word, or use, what's that thing? Speech to text.
Or ChatGPT.
Whatever way it is. But actually, unless you can find that calm and that solid kind of sense of confidence and sense of being okay with who you are, all of that helps. But it's the inside work that really makes a difference.
Absolutely. And that is the way to, as we say, banish the overwhelm. The only way that you really can banish the overwhelm is not through an app. It's not through a diary. It's not through a management technique or a Pomodoro. All of these help. They all help. Those are all in the action part. But actually understanding yourself and understanding what's really going on for you and understanding your neurodiversity, really understanding it. Not just the sort of practical, I struggle with spelling, or, I struggle with reading, or that, that's fine, but that's not really what we're looking at here. We're looking at the internal consequence of years of being neurodiverse and what that means for you. And then we can show you how your brain really works and how to use it, because it is an amazing tool.
It is.
It is one that I don't have and that Vanessa does have. And, you can use that brain, can't you, in an amazing way to create the things that you want. And I don't feel like I'm being very articulate, because without telling you all the techniques that I don't, I can't really tell them all now. It's just, no worries. Thank you, Nikki. Bye-bye.
See you, Nikki.
it is possible to harness that talent and to use it to create something that you really want.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, when you actually get past the negatives of being neurodiverse and you understand what those challenges are and why you have them, then it is actually really fantastic, because I am excitable. I can see things, I can think about something and then really feel it. And that is amazing. And that's why neurodiverse people are leaders and entrepreneurs. And, we really do connect to our environments and we connect to people, but it's that internal chaos that's the hardest thing. And I think, that's what we work on in the course, is like I said, this has come from lived experience. It's come from my specialist knowledge and Becky's life coaching and her knowledge of how to integrate being neurodiverse into the neurotypical world. Because there is a I hate using the word sweet spot, but there is, isn't there?
Well, there is. And we do a lot of work in the corporate space, training people on how to work effectively together, neurodiverse and neurotypical people, because, both have talents, but it's about neither having to make all the accommodations. It's a partnership. That's what we find, is that, when you can get that partnership between understanding yourself and being able to ask for the things that you need, and the people around you being able to understand what's really going on for you, then there's real power in that partnership. And that only comes from understanding yourself and really understanding what's happening for you, so that you can create change in your environment.
And it really is that acceptance and then action, because I know say let's take being in business. I started this business kind of just on my own, and I remember the flight that we had together, and I was just so overwhelmed with all of some of the practical, more organized, structured part of it. And the thing is, I craved the structure. I just didn't know how to set it up, or I couldn't even begin. Like, that was just like scaling Everest for me. I'll never forget when you said to me, well, how do you keep track of how people are paid? And I just pulled out this bit of paper with all these random numbers. It was horrifying.
The eyebrows went. The eyebrows.
But I guess now, I still know that that's not my talent, but I know that. I know what my strengths are, and I know what Becky's strengths are, and I know that I need to pull myself in sometimes, and but I'm okay with it. I don't feel bad about it anymore.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You're not going to be able to completely change who you are.
No.
And nor would you want to,
Sorry, that gave us
banging
a fright.
the door. Nor would you want to change who you are,
No.
because you're amazing just as you are. But it's about the not feeling bad about it all the time. The not feeling, oh my God, I'm so useless. Oh my God, I made another mistake. Oh no, I'm so rubbish. That negative cycle that is very easy to get into. You can change that. You can change that. And that's what we really wanted to talk about here now at the beginning of the new year, is that you don't have to go through another year hiding yourself, pretending to be someone that you're not. And just feeling
so overwhelmed.
Feeling overwhelmed and feeling like, there's no hope, as it were. There's no way to change the way that things are for you, because that isn't the case.
No.
You can create change in your life.
And we have helped people all over the world. So we're based in New Zealand, but that doesn't mean that if you want to come and have a little look at what the Resilient Minds course is, you don't have to be in New Zealand. And how it works is we've made some videos that you watch, and then we have coaching calls. And we've been running this for 3 years now, and we were a little bit nervous when we first did the coaching calls, weren't we? Because it can be quite vulnerable talking about some of this stuff. But what we realized is actually it's amazing. The groups of people we've brought together have just been fantastic, because actually you find out you're not the only one that thinks like that, and you're not the only one that has alone. These struggles. And that's actually really empowering, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And in fact, that is one of the most valuable parts of this process, is being able to connect with other people and hear other people's experiences and understand that what you're experiencing is actually very similar to what someone else is experiencing. You're not alone. So the course that we run, which is our Resilient Minds course, is 6 weeks. It's a 6-week course. And it's really very holistic and very gentle. It's, as Vanessa said, you know, we have a couple of little videos that you watch at the start of the week, and then some little actions for you to go out into the world and try. Nothing too scary. It's just some little sort of things to sort of start to shift your perception a little bit. And then we come together at the end of the week and we have our coaching call. And like you said, we've run this with people from all over the world. So if you're in the UK, or if you're in Europe, or wherever you are, we can find a time to make it work for you. So don't worry about that. And, you know,
and I'm just going to interrupt here. Can I just say there's no workbooks?
No workbooks.
The number of courses that I used to sign up for, going, oh my God, that's it. This is going to fix. And then you'd get a workbook. And I don't know about you, but I would I'd scan read it. B, then I'd be like, oh my God, I haven't done the workbook. I'm not going to go to the call or the, you know, whatever it was. Nothing like that. No. You know, it's done in a very neurodiverse friendly way, because we really understand how your brain works. And, you know, it's the experience that actually is going to change. You know, reading, you know, we don't learn or take in information by reading and listening. You know, those are just the things that don't work for us. No. And so it's actually, it's an experiential thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. So it's quite different to anything else, I think.
Yeah,
and it's quite, sorry, my phone, I forgot to shut down my email, so I'm getting email pings coming in. It's very different, and it's very, you know, it's a small group, so we only take a maximum of 8 people in the group. So it's a very small group of people that we bring together. And it's quite deep quite quickly, is what I would say. That's what surprised me every time we've run it, is that it gets quite sort of in depth quite quickly. Sorry, we've got a little message. People, I have neurodiverse nephew and neurodiverse colleagues, and they help better to communicate with them. I'm not sure about that, actually. We've not had any neurotypical people doing it, but I think as an educational process, it's absolutely valid. You know, I think from my perspective as a neurotypical person,
I was going to say, how would you find it?
I think it's very, very useful, because I think what it does is it helps you really understand what's going on for the neurodiverse people in your life. You know, I think.
Because actually, I remember so here you go. See, there's my dyslexia. I can't get my words out because I'm picturing where Vicky and I were. I remember that time when we were swimming and we started talking about your family. Yes. And I will never forget your realization that there was this family member who was deemed to be a little bit difficult because they never made it to the agreed appointments or the agreed times.
They're always changing things.
Always changing things. Late. And I always remember you having that revelation. It was just like, oh my goodness, wasn't it?
It's because they're neurodiverse, because they're dyslexic. That's why. And that changed my relationship with that person completely changed my relationship, having that realization that it wasn't just that they were flaky and they didn't, because I'd always had the perception before that they didn't prioritize me. Yeah. That it was like, you know, they don't care. They don't care very much because they're always late and they're always, you know, changing the appointments, and they're never sort of commit to doing things. And then the realization that it was nothing to do with that, nothing to do with me and how they felt about me. It was to do with their dyslexia and how difficult that was for them. Yeah. It completely changed things. It made me so much more compassionate towards them and so much more understanding that there was so much going on for them that I hadn't really considered. Yeah. You know, I hadn't really taken that into consideration. It's all very easy working with people that you don't know, but when it's family, it's a different matter, isn't it? You know?
So, so in answer to your question, Vicky, you know, I think it could be an interesting experience. It'll certainly give you a really good understanding of what's going on for them, and you know, some of the tools that we give, it would be really interesting to use, I think, because although we look at it from that neurodiverse perspective, I was just thinking about, you know, some of the emotional things and some of the phrases that we give.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, it could be,
if you want to have a chat about it. So what we'll do is we're going to put up a little QR code. Now I know not everyone's au fait with QR codes, so don't worry. We will send out an email probably tomorrow with a link to the detailed information, you know, the page about the course and everything, and a little link to book a call with us if you want to have a chat about whether this is the right thing for you or not. We know, maybe the time's right for you, maybe the time's not right for you, and that is totally cool. We only want you to sort of be part of this if it's something that you're ready to really sort of explore, and something that you're in the right place for. There's no point sort of going into it, I don't want to say like half-hearted, but like, like
I have no idea what she's saying here. What are you saying?
What I'm saying is that maybe the time's right for you, maybe it's not. That's all.
I think what Becky and I have found is we are terrible at selling.
Yes.
Really, we're not great at hard selling, and we just really want to help you feel better about yourself. So if you think that's something that you'd like to give a go, have a look at the QR code. Welcome to answer. You can ask us any questions. You can book a call. We're happy to have a chat, because ultimately, and actually we were just doing this before, we were talking about setting what we really want to achieve in our business. And what we really want to achieve is to help people feel empowered and better about themselves.
Yeah.
And neurodiverse people, because there's not enough out there for us. There's not enough resources out there. And, we really, truly believe that you deserve to live a life where you feel calmer, more capable, and good about yourself. And if you'd said that to me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would be like, we've got a saying in New Zealand, which is "you're right," which means, but that's not possible for me. And so I would just love to help people feel like that. So if it's something that you want to do, come along and we'd love to help you. Really.
Yeah. And I would just reiterate as well, don't worry about time zones. In the email that we'll send out to you after, not the one that you'll get from StreamYard, because I think they automatically send an email, but we'll send you an email with from us as well. I'll put a little link to book a call, but that is all set in New Zealand time. So if you're not in New Zealand, you might find that there isn't a time that works for you. If that's the case, just reply to the email and let us know, and we'll work out a time that works for you, because there are times that work. We can make it work. Absolutely.
We're very flexible.
We are sometimes too flexible.
But that's another conversation for another day.
That's another conversation for another day. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, if anyone's got any questions, we're happy to answer them now, or otherwise, we've got a couple of minutes left to wrap up.
So if you do have a question, or even if it's about neurodiversity or anything really.
Absolutely. It's really difficult to know when you do these things how much people know about neurodiversity already. We kind of assume that there isn't a high level of awareness, but maybe you already know a bit about neurodiversity. Maybe you already know that the neurodiverse mind is a predominantly visual mind, and that you see the world in a totally different way. This is stuff that we really get into in the course, is that the sort of, what does a cognitive difference really mean? Yeah. Because it's very easy to say it's a cognitive difference. What does that actually mean? Yeah. What does it mean to have that cognitive difference, and what does it look like, and what does it feel like?
Yeah. And what's the impact, I think, because that's the thing, it's great that there's so much information out there on social media, and I've seen so many posts about, getting through, often at the new year, we're like, okay, we're going to tidy stuff up or clear it out. And the idea of doing it is it'll happen. And then you kind of usually start, and then you suddenly get overwhelmed, and you're halfway through and you can't figure out the chaos. And there's lots of stuff like that. And I think that's great, but that's all talking about like I said, it's the outside, that's the effect. We really get more into the cause and how to change that internally, so that you can then change the external world, whether that be in your work, whether that be in your life, your friendships, your relationships, wherever really. I think that's what's different, isn't it?
Absolutely, because everyone will have their own way of dealing with their situation. Everyone will find their own workarounds or their own coping strategies that work for them. But the difference is that once you have that core understanding and that core self-belief and self-confidence,
the solid foundation,
absolutely, then it's sort of like, that's, as you say, that's all the external stuff that can all be sorted. All of that external stuff can be sorted. And, we have lots of stuff for that as well, but that's not predominantly what we're about. We're predominantly about the internal stuff. Sorry, just reading a message.
Thank
you, John. That's a very nice message. We appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to come. So we'll wrap up now and just say thanks so much to everyone for taking the time to come today. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you for taking the time to watch the replay.
Can we go back to being us?
We can go back to being big. Yes,
sorry, not that we haven't been us, but Thank you.
There we are. Yes,
There you go.
You're right. And if you can't, as I say, if you don't do QR codes, I know not that they're not for everybody, then we will send you out the link via an email in the next few days. So keep your eyes open for that.
Yeah.
And
please reach out. If you've got any questions, or hopefully we are approachable, and thank you. Sorry, my neurodiverse brain can't look at you and talk and read at the same time. Like, that's just way too much. So thank you very much for putting your little comments in there. But we're really happy to chat. Just contact us, and if this sounds like something, if you'd like to work with us, then we'd love to work with you too. So
absolutely, we'd love
us.
to. Absolutely. So have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are in the world, and thanks for being here. It's been lovely, and hopefully you found it a little bit useful.
Yeah.
Take care.
See you later. Bye.